My friend and I, drunk, dialed a curse number, and I think it killed her. I woke up in bed with all of my clothes on. It was almost noon. A pounding headache in my 18-year-old skull. The year was 2005, and I was horrifyingly hungover. I was in my own bed. I was alone. Both good. I couldn't remember anything from the night before shortly after the drinks started flowing. Not good. My cell phone kept ringing, that steady vibration. I didn't know where it was. It could wait. Our lives didn't revolve around our phones 20 years ago. Christ, that was 20 years ago now? My best friend Lucy was asleep on the couch out in the living, surrounded by empty bottles and cans. The house was a disaster. I only had one question for her. What happened? I have no idea. I got just as drunk as you, Lucy shot back at me. I broke my phone at some point. I know that. Speaking of phones, mine wouldn't stop ringing. One call would follow the next. What the fuck? I let it go. I figured it was some mess I had to clean up and I wasn't ready to face the day yet. I did check my calls though, and I had dozens of missed calls from the same number. Either a spam call or some psycho dude I met the night before I was gonna want to ghost. Brr, brr, brr. My phone started to ring yet again. Leave me alone. I rejected the call and threw my phone down. Your phone won't stop ringing either? Lucy asked. She showed me her phone. Yes, the screen was cracked, but it still seemed to work, and she showed it was actively getting a call as well. I can't even answer it if I wanted to, Lucy said, before she announced she was heading to the cell phone store to get it fixed and left. Brr! Ah! I raged so hard I accidentally threw up. Brr! 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 The call kept coming in, though. Maybe it was that my body had just ejected everything in my gut, but I suddenly got cold when I saw the call come through this time. That same fucking number. My intuition told me to not answer it. I did see I had called it the night before. Still didn't mean I was going to answer it. It was time to just Google the number. This seems crazy to write now, but Googling something wasn't as much of a no-brainer back then as it is now. I got a hit. One of those revenge porn-type college site forums where people posted pictures of people and talked shit. There was something about the number on the page for my college. The title of the post was rather discomforting. Do not call this number. Do not answer if it calls you. The rest of the post went on to explain. The poster didn't know how, but the phone number was cursed. If you called it, it would call you back until you answered, and you died if you answered it. How? Why? Who? Huh? There were no more answers. Just a warning. Did I believe it? Enough to where I had a horrible realization. I had to find Lucy and stop her in case she was going to answer a call from that number. She had just come back from the cell phone store with a fixed screen and disappeared into her room to sleep off the hangover. Brr, brr, brr. I could hear a phone ringing when I got back into the house. Lucy's room. It was coming from Lucy's room. I burst through Lucy's bedroom door. Don't answer it! I couldn't see Lucy, just her trashed bedroom. I screamed out to her, interrupted by the sound of brr, brr. I followed the sound of the phone. Oh no, she was in her bathroom. The phone buzzing was interrupted by the sound of a toilet flushing. Don't answer! I screamed again, and the bathroom door started to open. Too late. I saw Lucy hit accept, just as the door opened in my crazy face. Dylan? She answered with a groggy voice. The two of us locked eyes. She looked at me like I was insane. For a brief moment in time, I thought it was all going to be okay. Then the screaming sound came out of Lucy's phone, right next to her ear. Impossibly high, screeching, piercing, I thought my ears were going to explode. Then Lucy's ear exploded. Blood erupted from her ear, which was closest to the phone. She dropped the phone, and I saw it hit the ground and burst into flames. She screamed out in the most horrible pain I've ever heard and dropped to the ground, gripping her skull. I moved to help her. The phone flamed up and burned at me. I had to watch as she retreated further into blinding pain, and her other ear exploded with blood. Then her mouth, then nose, then eyes, and pretty soon my best friend was reduced to a blood-washed dead body at my feet. I had nothing to go off of other than that cryptic warning on the internet and the phone calls. I figured Lucy and I had to have called that number the night before when we were in a blackout, and she just unfortunately answered when it called back after her phone was fixed. The cops wrote it off as a brain aneurysm. I told them to look into the phone number from my phone. They were just confused and eventually said they would in a tone that couldn't have been any more dismissive. I did have one clue. There was a random Kansas City Royals baseball hat in our living room which made no sense. We lived thousands of miles away from KC, and I'd never seen anyone we knew wear one. Had someone came over that night we blacked out? Lucy's boyfriend Andrew had just broken up with her. I was suspicious. He might wear a random baseball hat. He might have wanted to mess with us, angry Lucy had broken up with him. He was little help. I know he thought Lucy had broken up with him because of me, so I was the last person he wanted to talk to. Plus, he was a rich kid, and I'm sure his parents' attorney told him to not engage with me. I let it go. Even if I figured anything out, it wasn't going to bring Lucy back. I changed my number. I got a new phone. I moved on. It didn't seem like it worked. I didn't bleed out from my head, but my life fell apart slowly, piece by piece. I got the flu, and I swear I couldn't shake it for months. I failed out of college. My mom got diagnosed with cancer, and it annihilated my mental health. I moved back to her house to help her and hit the reset button on my life. Christmas time couldn't have felt more hollow. I had to go to the mall to do Christmas shopping. Yes, 2005 was such a different time. And avoid the eye contact of my old classmates who were home from the colleges they were still enrolled in. I was in a Hot Topic 2005 when the clouds parted, which led me to the path of sitting here healthy and well writing this out for you. I overheard a conversation between the employees behind the register. They were talking about a phone number which killed people. Alec had kind eyes. Sure, they were hidden behind a coat of white makeup, a piercing between them and the bridge of his nose, and greasy, swooped bangs. But those blue eyes seemed to immediately put me at ease when I asked him if he could help. He agreed to talk with me during his next smoke break. Not surprisingly, I had actually taken up the sport, and we froze next to a dumpster as he explained to me everything he knew. It's not just one number, it can change. Supposedly there was a kid around here who was a fucking psycho, wanted to be a school shooter, but instead wanted to fuck up and kill people in more interesting ways or some shit. He had an aunt, super into witchcraft, like lived in a coven in the middle of nowhere, and he worked with her to craft a curse to get back at all the bullies. But then he just started taking any kid who he remotely didn't like and would sneak their phones, call the number, and got the curse to spread like wildfire. It's full on in other states now. Spreads a lot on college campuses. Apparently a lot of revenge to have there. Alex started in on me. How do you know all this? I asked in my best tone to make it seem like I didn't doubt him. Alec pushed some of his dyed black shoulder-length hair to the side and revealed nothing but scared skin where his left ear should have been. How? Luck. I don't know. I think I hung up quickly enough, maybe. Alec covered his ear back up. Why did you and your friend call it? Alec asked. I didn't. I think someone else took our phones when we were blackout drunk. You never answered it, though? He asked. No. I've heard that if you call it, but don't answer when it calls back. It still wastes you away, slowly, over time. Until you die, want to kill yourself, OD? Just end it all. Why do you think so many kids are messed up around here? So I'm going to die? Slowly? There's no way I can reverse it? I asked. I've only heard of two ways. You can either pass it on to someone else, or you can find the person who gave it to you and reverse it on them. Do you know who gave it to you? I couldn't get the picture of Andrew's smug face out of my head. I knew he'd be home for the holidays from college, and I bum-rushed him at one of those first years of college we're all back for Christmas parties. Andrew was wasted and guilty. He talked to me. He missed Lucy. Shut up. I needed information I could do something with, or I could go home and drink by myself instead of with people I didn't even really like in high school. I was jealous, yeah, but I would never hurt Lucy. She was seeing someone else right after we broke up. Maybe before. She probably didn't tell you, but your story makes sense. She would get herself and the other person super blackout drunk when she had something she was nervous to share. That's probably what she did that night. Then maybe she invited him over. Andrew finally gave me some gold. He took a really long swig of beer. He was doing his own version of Lucy's song and dance of blacking out when he wanted to share something difficult. You should check her Facebook profile. That's always where she was talking to guys when she got sketchy. It was a lot easier to hide than a call. I couldn't believe I hadn't thought about what Andrew suggested. This was 2005, and people's Facebooks would just sit there like zombies after they died. I knew Lucy's email. I knew the password she probably used. I was in her inbox within 30 seconds of getting back home from the party. There was a message from an account which didn't have a photo. Dylan Lanning, University of Oregon. It looked like the profile had been deleted, but the skeleton of the account and the messages remained. Going through the conversation between Lucy and Dylan, he saw her profile on Facebook randomly and reached out, EU. Lucy was definitely starting to date him or hook up or whatever, but he went to school a good distance away, so it was weird. And it started while she was still dating Andrew, so she was being secretive about it, even with me. He was going to be in town this weekend visiting friends, and she was going to introduce him to me after we got really drunk. That night had started to come back to me in little shreds, the way blackout drinking nights have done to me over the years. I thought I could picture some generic, fratty white guy in our kitchen that night. He looked a lot like Andrew. Lucy liked them extra basic as hell. Facebook was in its infancy at the time, so finding people who were actively in college at the time was easy. I found Dylan's real or new account rather quickly. There he was, University of Oregon, hometown, Kansas City, Sigma Chi fraternity. His profile picture a photo of him smiling in a Kansas City Royals hat. Oh, and he was in a relationship with a girl, real stand-up guy. Now is where I had to play the role of the ethicist. Was I 110% sure Dylan was the one who messed with Lucy's phone and/or my phone that night and called that number? Was he simply trying to get rid of the curse and pass it off on us? He had to have been the one. No one else could have. Alec had said he heard a lot of times people would go dump it off at other colleges if they got it theirs, and how trustworthy was a frat guy, especially in 2005? It was enough for me. Nice to meet you, Dylan. I went to Oregon the first weekend after winter break. I scouted out Dylan's frat. There was a party that Saturday. Perfect. A decent-looking co-ed myself, I slipped in and blended in all by myself rather easily. I disguised myself, though, so Dylan wouldn't recognize me. Wig, heavy makeup, glasses. Not too difficult. The party was loud, boozy, and wild. I caught him on the dance floor as he was dancing around with his buddies. I slipped my hand into his pocket and found his cell phone. I retreated to the bathroom. I flew through his contacts until I found his girlfriend's name in there. I changed her number to the cursed number. Then I called it. I went back into the fray of the party and slipped the phone back into Dylan's pocket. He didn't even appear to notice the entire thing, too busy whooping it up with his bros and doing coke. Oh my god, I hadn't even planned that, but it would be the perfect excuse for why his head exploded internally that night. My next move was tricky. I wanted to watch it all unfold. I befriended the best-looking girl I could find. I asked her if she could help a sister out. Could she lure Dylan into one of the bedrooms and then leave him hanging? Sure thing. She hated that frat anyways. Lots of rape allegations. She was actually there just to keep an eye on her friends. Dylan was light work to her. She had him in that bedroom within a couple of minutes of me getting in there and hiding in the closet. She faked like she was going to make out with him, then said she was going to go get her friend to join them. Well played, girl. Brr, brr, brr. A phone vibrating became obvious once things calmed down in the room. I watched Dylan check his phone. His posture reflected that my plan worked. He saw the cursed number calling, but disguised as his girlfriend, and he had a little panic. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. He accepted the call. He picked up the phone and put it to his ear. Hey, babe. Ooh. The blank second that existed there is burned in my head as if it lasted eons. Then it happened. The blood spurted out of his ear and onto the phone. Babe? He pathetically said one last time before his other ear spurted out a thick plume of blood all over the room. It was time for me to get out of that closet if I wanted to ice the cake I had just perfectly baked. I pushed the doors open as Dylan stumbled around the room. He stopped when he saw me step out of the closet. I could see his eyes for just a brief second before he fell straight backward. I felt like there was recognition. It was enough for me. I walked out of the room. I grabbed a beer on my way out of the party. I cracked it open as soon as I stepped outside, thirsty. I stopped and poured some out for Lucy on the sidewalk. It was the last drink either of us ever had.